involving men in the conversation about menstruation is absolutely essential. We tend to raise our girls with shame.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Interview. And today I have with me a very interesting guest. In fact, a change maker. She is Aditi Gupta, a co-founder of Menstrupedia. Now she runs this organization and she has been on Forbes 30 under 30 list. She is in fact a real change maker who talks about, educates, and spreads awareness about menstruation and periods among the masses in our country. My first question to you is, Aditi, what made you start this journey and this organization? What prompted you to start this whole journey in India?
Right. So Menstrupedia was started because of my own experience of facing the taboo. I grew up with just like millions of girls in India. I was not allowed to touch a neat pickle or sit on the sofa or some other family member's bed. By the way, I want to point out that like all the kids where I'm today and what I am doing today has to do everything how much my parents took care of me, and sometimes immense sacrifices and sometimes beyond their capabilities. But when it came to access of sanitary napkin, I did not have access to sanitary napkin, not because my parents couldn't afford it. We had a fair background, but because even buying of sanitary napkin was considered shameful. I grew up in this small place. This place is called Gadhwa. It is in Jharkhand. And during that time, there were no malls, so you have to go buy sanitary napkin from this medical store. So I would use rags and old clothes to manage my periods. And I think usage of cloth is not bad, but the way we treated any cloth that is soaked with blood and then wash it and reuse it again, we treated those wash clothes with a lot of secrecy. And growing up, nobody knew what periods are, why do period happen, but everybody somehow knew that it is something to be not talked about. So I grew up looking at my body and myself as very dirty, like millions of girls actually in our country. This experience of mine, most of the girls can relate to, at least of my age, they can definitely relate to. And my school was also very small. We had only 6 students in the class. It was more like a tuition class, but our biology teacher skipped the chapter, asking us to go through. I mean, it came in class 9. I got my periods in class 7. So in school also, because this favorite science teacher skipped the chapter, it just made all of us believe that menstruation is something that you shouldn't talk about, and decent girl and decent boys don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But my perception about menstruation changed when for the very first time I discussed about it to a male person. And this male person happened to be Tuhin Paul, my co-founder and also my husband. This was during our post-graduation days. We used to do a lot of projects together. We fell in love with each other, and I was comfortable sharing with him why I'm getting cramps, all of those things. And when I shared that, there are these stigma, and I have these, all of these, you know, um, what can I say, beliefs that I follow during my periods and all of those things. So he was very curious. He actually got shocked. Twin is just 2 brothers. His mother never explained to him what menstruation is because she thought that boys are not to be taught about. Again, very common with all the boys. Nobody tells in their home that what periods are. And that conversation actually led us to, we were studying design, we were studying communication design, and most of our projects were targeted towards educating kids or something to do with learning. And we saw a huge gap there. So it was a classroom project in design college, which turned out to be a research project, which now is our life's mission. And that is how Menstrupedia was established.
So something that made you uncomfortable, you just turned it around in an opportunity to serve other people in a way.
Right.
As you rightly mentioned, that period is something that boys are not taken into account. For example, if you are talking about periods or a menstruation, a man or boy does not have to engage or participate in that conversation. Ideally, that has been happening in our society, and you also said that. Why do you think we should change that, and is it in fact changing now? If we look at in today's scenario of education, digitization, more spreading of awareness around the issue, do you think there's a change or do you think we need to work hard on that front?
um, Involving men in the conversation about menstruation is absolutely essential. But what has happened through centuries, actually,
Mhm.
through decades and decades, what has happened is that we do not tell our boys inside the house only what periods are. But here is the thing about our country specifically, because I live in this country, so I can be a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
critical about about it. We tend to raise our girls with shame. So shame is taught to young girls at a very young age. We actually systematically teach girls to be shameful about their bodies and their behavior. And we systematically teach our boys to be ignorant about things. You know, boys would be boys, ladka hai chalta hai, khana nahi banayega chalega, shirt gande hai chalega. But what is happening is that we are and systematically we are including, excluding boys from, first of all, um, we are raising both the genders in a very very faulty ways.
Mhm.
First of all, we are not addressing their emotions, and all of these leads to raising insensitive men. And when these men, when they participate in, in the society, or you go to your office and you say that, oh my god, my colleagues don't understand me, my boyfriend is not able, or my batchmates are being insensitive towards my need. But what has happened is that yours your brother was also raised in the same way how your colleagues were raised. They were not told how to behave around girl. They were not told what periods are. Their mothers never told them what periods are. I'll give you a very
Yeah.
for the first time, when a lot of people ask to him that why he as a man decided to work in the area of menstrual education, and he always says that menstruation, it seems like that menstruation does not affect you, but menstruation affects every woman. That is very very important to me. It affects my mother, it affects my sister, it affects my wife, and I should be concerned about it. Actually, the first time when I told to him that, these are the inconvenience, the very first thought that he had was about his mother. He said, if my mother, and he was like this, alas, my mother did not tell me about this. She did not feel the need to tell me about this. Had she told me about it, I could have been a better son for all those 7 days. And I could have helped her more in her household chores, or I could have been a less terrible child and a less demanding child for my mother.
Yeah.
So, and this is a very small fraction actually. When you involve men in conversation of what is happening in with women's body, you also open up the conversation of what is happening with men. What is about you? You teach them to accept their emotions. There are so many complex emotions that even boys have growing up. The need to cry, the need to be vulnerable, the need to feel weak, and we rip off our boys as a society to not feel all of these emotions,
मर्द को
which is
दर्द
such
नहीं
a
होता है.
crime that we are doing. Huh,
मर्द
which
को
is
दर्द.
which is such a crime, which is such a crime. We fundamentally are you're constantly talking about damaged men, which I think, and damaged women also, which I think at some level we all are. But the thing is that that damage was done at a very young age, and we are by fundamentally we are living all the men. So for girls, we are making them very shameful. They have access to no information, and boys are just pushed towards pornography for everything that they know about women's body, which is so damaging. We cannot do that. So
And
not
you have
only
come
the
up,
conversation about periods.
I think you have come up with a new book also, Gululu,
Yes,
particularly
Gulu.
about boys.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
and it came after, after making a book on menstruation,
Yeah.
and how Menstrupedia comic book, we could see that how girls are being raised, how fundamentally the collective wisdom around menstruation is changing. It was very important for us to then address how do we raise boys also. Just saying that, hey, you involve men also in the conversation is something that was not acceptable to us. If we are advocating about that, we must come up with a tool. So that is what we did.
Why do you think there's a lot of shame associated with the word period in our country? A lot of shame. You cannot go to kitchen, you cannot do this, you can't do that. You can't even talk about it openly. Even today in remote parts
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
country, and you know better than me, even today there's a
Not
lot
only
of shame
remote, not only
associated.
remote parts, cities
Uh-huh.
also,
Cities
cities
also.
also.
Why is that situation? Is it not improving now?
Is it improve? It's improving, I would say. So there are two, three things. One, periods are related to ovulation was not known to us until mid 18th century.
Mm-hmm.
Actually mid 19th century actually. So which means that periods before that were always considered to be something very, very mysterious. So in the Paleolithic era, where the women's body were actually worshipped, not worshipped, but it was more like a matriarchal society where voluptuous body or women who are producing like women was always considered as this, this somebody who gives birth, and so that time they would sprinkle menstrual fluid in the farm, thinking that menstrual fluid is making the soil more fertile. Even that perspective is wrong. But um, but uh, period being taboo, period is associated with ovulation, and it leads to pregnancy. All of those things is in the medical uh, field also. It is a very new concept. But period being a taboo is, but there are many new concepts. Like for example, we have started storing our data on cloud now. I remember when I was young, I used to use floppy disk. Five, पांच word के file save करते थे. 5 word file I will save, and that floppy disk would be, उसमें से 10 लेके आते थे, जिसमें कि 5 चलते नहीं थे. So we very fastly moved from in the last 20 years, we very fastly moved, adopted to new technology. But when it comes to um, using tools to oppress women or discriminate women fundamentally, we don't move it very fast.
Mhm.
We associate it with tradition, and people are very sentimental about their traditions. They're not very sentimental. But I don't understand when it comes to women's body and a fluid coming to her body from her body. People are very sentimental about their traditions and their belief system. But when it comes to adapting technology that is helping them, like floppy disk, I've not seen people being crying over floppy disk, but people crying over, oh, my nanny used to do like this. But I would suggest that a lot of it has to do with nobody question things.
Mm.
So what is happening right now is people are questioning the status quo.
At
And
least they
I
have
think
started.
that when
Yeah.
it comes to, yeah, and I think that it was all cyclic. So what was happening, it was passed on like a hand me down things. um a collective, whatever information people have about periods, they got it from their mothers got it from their mothers and their mothers. So that thing needed to be disrupted. School was not teaching about periods in India. Sex education scenario is completely messed up,
Even
unfortunately,
today.
but they're
Even
like,
today.
yes, even today, we cannot say even today, it's
Mhm.
just messed up.
Mhm.
It has no future. I'm going to be very, very critical about how we as a country approach sex education. But at the same time, in books, if you'll see, they will say that words like vagina is censored. They will say that the blood is going to come out from your body. Now, I, as a kid, always saw Shah Rukh Khan bleeding from his mouth, from his nose. Every time Shah Rukh Khan gets beaten up, he is bleeding from his nose. And violence induced blood is accepted on our television in prime time, in family time, but red color on sanitary napkin in prime time is not, I mean, first of all, sanitary napkin advertisement during prime time was not accepted. 20 साल पहले 30 साल पहले प्राइम टाइम पे कोई भी सैनिटरी नैपकिन का एड नहीं आता था. Now that red fluid is also not accepted. It's a blue fluid. So all of these things, add up to, like, people people work really hard to keep it a taboo, and nobody wanted to break it. But only through information, no, not only through information advocacy, a lot of things could change. But things actually changed when, there was a feminist tsunami that came to our country after the Delhi gang rape case, and
Yeah.
actually people became very, very this was the first time the whole country was shook up, and they thought that we have to talk about a lot of things. And then periods were also one of the things. In fact, period becomes like a very fundamental thing, because if a girl or a woman can't even talk about her natural biological process, how is she ever going to talk about any violence that she faces on her body? we start to silence her, knowing unknowingly
Yeah,
we
yeah.
are all doing it in our own family. So then people would talk about it, people would write, make films about it, write about it. There were a lot of student movements. Sanitary napkin ad conversation started to change. Earlier, shame was used to sell menstruation.
Mhm.
Every sanitary napkin ad would say, "Oh, I am down," or "Laga." The jingle would go like this: "Laga
Yeah.
chunri mein daag," or
Mm.
something like this. By the way, the same companies would sell surf or a washing powder with a jingle like "Daag achhe hote," but the same daag. So we know that all of these, the conversations or the communications that are happening in marketing the products also are making sure that all of these becomes taboo. But I can see that at least from the last 8 years, I can see that more and more conversations are taking place. And at least right now, talking about periods is a very trendy topic. And that's a good thing. But a lot needs to be done. And collectively, it would change.
What would happen if men would menstruate? Would things be same or different? I know
I think it
it's
should definitely be different. I think, yeah, there's a very famous, this is very funny essay by Gloria Steinem. What if men started menstruating and they would brag about it? It's true that if men started menstruating, it would be taken more as a sign of masculinity. And how women experience menstruation has to do a lot with how society is. It's patriarchal. Men would brag about how tough they are, and they are using rags and not sanitary napkin, and they can yeah, all of these things are there. I do agree that it would change, but I don't want to be that person who reads a good essay and say that, oh, because patriarchy exists, these all things are not going to change. I would rather every day try to smash it. And but i also want I also wanted to be invested in the right kind of audience.
Mhm.
I'm not the person who would get onto social media and try to convince, two strangers in the comment section and outrage about it. I'm that person who will systematically, and Tuhin and me both, we will systematically make a plan where we want to educate at least 5 girls or 10 girls the right thing about periods and their bodies, so that when these girls grow up to become mother, they have the right kind of information and they share the right kind of information with their daughter.
On that
And
point,
at least,
yeah. So
yes,
sorry to cut you. Like I just wanted to ask, like, how many girls do you think actually know or have an idea about periods even before their first period in this country?
right. So 1.2 crore girls in India get their reach puberty. 1.2 crore girls reach puberty in our country every year. That is how huge the number is. And 85% of these girls don't even believe that menstruation is a natural biological process.
Oh my God, 85%. Now that's a huge number.
It That's a huge number, but it's a okay. So when you look at the numbers, it really makes you very very what can you say? It can make you sad. It can make you outraged also. 23% of the girls who menstruate start to drop out from school. The girls are not studying only because their periods have come. By the way, if in our country is a very what can I say? Is a country who's very particular about bleeding girls. I'll tell you why. Nobody wants to marry a woman who cannot produce a child. Producing a child is a very very important act or a very very important role of women in our country. So everybody wants a bleeding girl, but nobody wants to talk about it. 23% of the girls start to drop out from the school, and they miss out on school. So you are understanding that lakhs and lakhs of girls are not studying only because their periods have started. We don't have enough toilets, and that's why I'm very appreciative of the honorable prime minister. I mean, building toilets at least, and working towards through Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, building toilets at least. Um, and uh, and they drop out. So once the girl is dropping, not studying, she is definitely going to be married at a young age. If she is going to be married at a young age, she does not have a say over when she is going to become pregnant, and she is going to be economically dependent on somebody else. And this all leads to her falling for the systematic gender-based violence. She does not have a say over her own bodies. She cannot choose when she wants contraception or
Yeah, I
not.
mean, in a way, it's a
Who
silent
is
violence against her. You have just
yes?
it has
So
just been a normalized phenomenon.
just a small thing. Period. It's not just it's a small thing, but even if it's and that is why I think working towards creating awareness about menstruation actually creates a lot of ripple effect if you are working towards empowering girl or gender equality. It actually goes a very very long way in keeping the girls in school. You are empowering them just by keeping the girls in the school. You are actually you actually don't have to work towards a lot of things which would happen to her in the future, but
Mhm.
just making sure that she goes to school and breaking the taboo around menstruation.
You have been educating people in villages and urban India also. Like, what are the biggest challenges that you face in terms of education and talking about periods among all age groups of women and men, both? The biggest challenges that you have been facing, and we need to work on those fronts.
I think the biggest challenge is definitely about the mindset, but the way we work is exactly how it is designed in a way that it enables people to feel comfortable to talk about periods, and that is why Menstrupedia has been so successful. It is a very very small company, but the impact has been huge. We designed Menstrupedia comic. We made Menstrupedia comic book for India. We thought that chalo South Asian country mein kaam karega, but apart from India, 10 different countries publish the book locally in their language.
So
So
it's a
around the
universal
world, people
problem.
are yes. Or it was also the way we approach periods. We create a positive perception about menstruation, uh, which in itself leads to behavioral change of people. Um, One is mindset, and surprisingly, I have had more challenges in the urban area as compared to
Uh-huh.
the rural area.
Why?
Yes, because okay, so because urban area
Because
people are
yeah.
not ready to accept that I am wrong. People think that, oh, my Kamwali's daughter needs to know what periods are. The problem is that your daughter too does not know what periods are. And it's easier for us to reach out to schools in the rural area because somebody else is making that choice. The government is distributing the books or it is done through NGO. But when it comes to urban area and, those schools which are the most elite school, those schools are difficult to go because they're always concerned that what are the parents going to tell them, that why did you teach, they would always think that this is an objectionable subject. But the acceptance, actually we have actually not faced a lot of challenges, but just people have just loved Menstrupedia. We did not have, it's only last year that we have started paid marketing for Menstrupedia. Otherwise we would never do paid marketing, and everything was word of mouth. People
Mhm.
who came to know about Menstrupedia would write about it, or one principal adapted it, more and more schools adopted, and that is how and
So
and
village,
that has been
yeah.
probably the biggest one.
So villages were not that big of a problem, but urban India was because of the ego, maybe a ego problem. Because I know मेरे को सब पता है. How can you come and tell me?
Apart from that, just being delusion that we do not need an intervention, and this mindset that अरे हम तो educated. So this is what happens with taboo topic. When a problem is taboo, the problem is so huge that you don't know the size of the problem. And with urban India, just urban India does not want to accept that they are backward. They say
Mhm.
that we are educated. Very, very, like if you go to Menstrupedia's Q&A section, the most popular questions used to be not taking bath during periods, or during periods, we cannot enter temple. All of these questions are posted by whom? Women who have access to internet.
Mhm.
Women who are probably working in, in their IT companies. Urban people are asking
Okay,
these
so about
questions.
myths,
But
yeah, sorry to cut you. About period myths, in which, I mean, where is it more prevalent, urban India or rural India? Which section of the
it's
society?
both. Whenever it comes to taboo topic, people have over and over again, people kept doing their researches, people kept collecting questions. The question that a kid from a village would ask would not be very different from a question a urban kid would ask. In fact, in urban areas, things become very, very complex. I'll tell you. So, which city are you from?
I'm from Patna.
Okay, you're from. Oh, I'm from Ranchi. Hi.
Yeah, hi,
Okay. Okay. So, let's talk about Ranchi.
Yeah.
Ranchi is again a tier 2 city. Um, in Ahmedabad, there are these international schools. These international schools are Mahatma Gandhi International School, like really, really good schools. In those schools, in fact, when we talk about sex education, all of those things, they are taught very nicely. But a ninth standard girl told me that if they go swimming during their periods, they would get pregnant.
Mhm.
Now, if you go to an interior part of Gujarat, the girls would say, ninth standard girls would say that if if we don't want to go to tuition during our periods, because tuition may when we come back it becomes late, and if the boys would know that I am on my periods, they would rape me. Very, very complex problems, by the way. The first is that why this kind of myth is floating is because when it comes to like not getting not going to swimming during their periods, is because people want the swimming pool to be clean. So anything that they want to scare the girls about it, they would say that this would lead you to pregnancy. So myths, very hard, like all the myths somehow leads to girls getting in trouble, and being pregnant is the most troublesome thing that can happen to a unmarried girl in our society.
Yeah.
That is how what we have also seen in all the films everywhere.
Yes.
When it comes to, let's say, girls from Mehsana district, where the girls would say that if boys would come to know about periods, they would rape us. Again, the society is telling, everybody is telling around them that you do not have to share it with boys, trying to keep them secrecy. And who is responsible for it? The girls, because they would be getting raped. So it's not, even if period taboos is just about taboo, it's just about they becoming impure, all of these things, it leads to so many. So just imagine that a ninth standard girl, you think about you every day coming to school in a fear that somebody is going to rape you. Would you ever excel in your studies? Would you ever try to understand anything else beyond this? How are your social norms going to change? Are you going to excel in something? Are you going to, I don't know, yeah, breathe freely? So that is
Exactly.
what we
That's
are
yeah.
ripping off
That's
our girls.
psychological warfare is being created against women.
Yes,
How
correct.
digital era has changed work for you and your organization? How you have been using it to spread awareness, and also after the COVID-19 pandemic, how things have changed?
Actually. So during it was very limiting in the very beginning, but like we always say, you never let go a good crisis go to waste. So what we did during the pandemic year is that whatever Menstrupedia knew about running a successful period company. So Menstrupedia is a for-profit company. We are not an NGO. We make the most competitive product, that is Menstrupedia comic book, for education, for educating girls, and we are very proud about it. A kick-ass product that, and a competitive product. And we have not taken any external funding so far. We would be getting into fundraising rounds. So whatever Menstrupedia knew about establishing a company, running a sustainable business, or developing a curriculum which was so widely acceptable. Menstrupedia comic books are read in 11,000 schools. So how did we do all of these things? We packaged all of it into a 2 hours of master class. And we said, whoever wants to become a menstrual educator, now is the time, learn from us. And I think educators from 25 different countries, these are not only educators, these are men, football coaches, research scholar, entrepreneurs, people from the NGO, field workers, they all joined. And rather than, because the schools were closed, we work directly with
Yeah.
girls from in the school. So schools were closed and we couldn't reach. I mean, we thought, how do we really, really have a snowball effect on our impact? So we were like, okay, we cannot go to the schools. What we are going to do is that those people who go to the school, who have access to community, we are going to tell them everything what is needed to teach girls about menstruation, and that is what we did. So I think we have done some 25 master classes so far, and it has been a tremendous success. um, People when registered from different part of the world, sometimes the master class actually happens during midnight or post midnight or early morning, and still we can see
Yeah.
that a lot of people join.
My last question to you is, what do you think one needs to become a change maker like you? What do you suggest if someone looks up to you? I mean, you faced issue and then again you turned that around and then you yourself become educator and then you are doing this wonderful job. What it takes to be a change maker if someone is in your place?
Mhm. um, Persistence. Your networking can fail or fade away.
Mhm.
Your talent could be limiting, or you can build upon your talent. But uh, but you really cannot stop a person who does not gives up. So Tuhin and I are those people. We are just cockroaches. We just don't give up. So just don't give up. And be persistent. There is no secret. There is no secret. You have to try out things. You have to learn new things. Some things will work, something will not work. You will have success, you will have failures. Both of these does not matter actually. What matters is that what kind of impact you're creating and what is giving meaning to you. And Be persistent. There is no other way of
As
changing
you
things actually.
as you rightly said, that this is not an NGO, it's a profit making company. So even a, an issue or matter like period can also be turned around and then there can be a solution. Okay, okay, it's a good career option, it's a profit making process. So
Oh, actually, it has to be a good. I'm not saying it has to be market, but I'm saying that more and more solutions should come. 50% of your population have periods. There is no innovation that has taken place. We only have 5 to 6 products. वही आपस में झगड़ा करते रहते हैं और एक दूसरे को पुल डाउन करते रहते हैं. अभी तो एंटी पैड स्क्वाड चालू हो गया है, which I think is very very boring. Pads are great. All the other products are also great. So वहां पे भी innovation नहीं है, but yeah, I mean, सबके पास यूट्रस है यार. 50% लोगों के पास यूट्रस है. You should do something about it.
and it's high time that we talk about it. Thank you so much, Aditi, for this lovely conversation on this very sensitive topic, and please keep doing this wonderful work that you are doing and your
Thank you so much.
organization.